Hanging with the WTOP crew, we got Rob Woodfork. Go ahead and give a thumbs up, Rob. Yeah, you got me. All right, we got Dave Preston. We got the Big Chi, right? The Big Chi, Chris Cichon, and George Wallace. We're talking NFL Week 1 is in the books. And let's just start there. Many thought we wouldn't even get to this point where we're talking about results and what happened. We'll begin with you, Rob. We'll go around the horn. Your impressions that the NFL was able to get a week in the books with everything that's been going on.
I'm actually somewhat surprised because it seemed for a long time during the offseason that they didn't really have a plan. They were just kind of going to wing it. We're not going to bubble. We're not going to, we're just going to play football because we are the NFL. But it seems that they have got a pretty good testing program in place. They've been able to avoid a rash of positive tests. They were able to get the games off. And, I mean, we'll see what happens as more travel occurs. But through 1 week, bravo NFL.
Dave Preston, you call it the best reality shows back, so we can be relieved on that.
Yes, and there's nothing better than going from brunch on Sunday to watching the late games, and it's nice to put the NFL schedule to bed on Sunday, especially when the Cowboys lose, even though that may not have been an offensive pass interference. What you have to love about the NFL is the drama, especially as those the 1 o'clock games wind down around 3:45 to 4:30 and everything. It has the feel of the NCAA tournament the first 2 days. And it's pure adrenaline. And when the NFL does it right, they do it better than anyone else. And when you look at how football has taken over this country for the last 50 years, it's good to have it back. And I think everybody's happy that things are definitely not normal in this pandemic time. But I definitely think that having the NFL back in at least its semi-regular way, it's reassuring for everyone, myself included.
And there was a Monday night doubleheader. In fact, I was waking up surprised it was still going on because Stephen Gostkowski had missed 10 field goals or whatever had happened. And I'm hearing you live, Dave Preston, at 1:15 in the morning because the Titans-Broncos not done. George, go ahead and jump in there. Your thoughts now we've got week 1 in the books. Unmute yourself, and I need your NFL impressions. And George, hit that mute. There we go.
All right, there we go. So as the resident gambler, if you will, on this round table here, I'd say that I'd be leaning towards the over in almost every single one of these games because I think defenses are going to struggle this year without the crowd. Revving them up and getting behind them and being able to confuse an offense. I think some of these offenses were able to operate. I know Tampa Bay is a bad example because Tom Brady basically had a poor game outside of the first drive. But if you looked at the first drive, he operated nearly flawlessly because you can make all of the calls. You can communicate with your skill guys and your offensive linemen. And I just don't know that the defenses – I know that was watching the Bears game in the second half. That defense just came out flat, and I just was thinking to myself, they're not as juiced up with no fans there. So I think it's going to be great for those who like to watch shootouts and offensive juggernauts. But as far as like the slug it out, outside of the Ravens, who are just an outstanding team top to bottom, fans or not, I think we're going to see a lot of points this year in the NFL.
Yeah, although we just got confirmation the Browns got relegated to Division II, so I'm not sure that win is going to count for the Ravens in Week 1. I saw you smiling as he was talking about that, Rob. What were you thinking when she was talking?
I was thinking that his beard looks really good today. But aside from that, the thing that I take away, and he made a really great point there, but the thing that's been in my head really is, how do you go back to a preseason after you've seen how they played football pretty well without it? We've been told for so long that, you got to have the preseason. It's a way for the guys who are undrafted to kind of work their way up, and all of that is true. But in terms of putting a good product out there on the field for the regular season games, what has been demonstrated is that you don't need the preseason. And so it'll be interesting to see how the NFL approaches this next season, assuming that there's any sense of normalcy come 2021. But, to see that brand of football played that way, other than making it really obvious that you're only keeping preseason to make money, I don't know how you justify keeping that.
Well, that's a great point and you think about it, they've been talking for years now about dropping 2 of the games and going to an 18-game schedule. And you see behind me the dirt infields. Back in those days, they had 6 preseason games.
Yeah.
And then lately it's become 3 and then 1 where they just kind of walk around for 3 hours because –
Yeah, I mean, the 4th one is just for the guys who aren't going to make the team to make an impression to either land on the practice squad or make an impression for another team to pick them up. So, I mean, you're right. But, again, they have the 20-game slate, whatever that is, and they're trying to break it down however they need to break it down so that they continue to make money. Yeah,
well, and maybe it wasn't cleaner football or board officials. Did you see the stat today that offensive holding was down 78% from week 1 this year to week 1 last year? Better football, or the referees are just bored?
I think they
could be, they're in preseason mode too. But like I said, I thought the football, I was impressed with how clean it was, I would say, Sunday, at least in the game that, I can't watch the other games 1 o'clock focusing on that one, but I was impressed. I mean, not many penalties, not many sloppy penalties, and the football, the tackling was somewhat crisp. I mean, it's, I was very surprised.
Dave Preston, your thoughts?
Well, I think preseason, 2 things. One, it is the NFL's version of coffee, as far as that is the highest profit margin item in any restaurant. And do people go there for the coffee? No, but that's where you make your most coin. And that's where the NFL makes its most profit margin in August, because they're being able to charge regular season prices and they're not paying full game checks and things of that vein. I think when you look at how the defenses were maybe a little bit behind, maybe that was perhaps because of no preseason. Whereas you look at the offenses, what are you doing as an offense? You're drilling, you're focusing on making sure that you've got your offensive rhythm correctly. You can do that in August. Defense, it's a lot of reacting. It's a lot of game planning. And maybe the defenses will catch up at some point in time. I think maybe we'll go back to 1 or 2 games in August. What's nice about the preseason on one level is it gets guys on tape who normally wouldn't make a roster. Yeah. So it gets them on tape out there for other teams. It can give them an extra life in the NFL, so to speak. Also, it allows teams to kind of open the store. It's tough with the hard open when you're starting on Labor Day. The NFL, and granted, I'm the guy who is not excited about the NFL being in my consciousness during March and April and during the offseason that never ends for them. But it's nice to kind of get the season underway in August with the preseason. You're not completely focused as a fan or as someone who's covering it, but you know that the regular season is on the horizon. People can gear up for fantasy teams. People can gear up for watching their team, as opposed to just all of a sudden you have to turn on the switch, which I think a lot of people did this past Sunday with no problem whatsoever.
All right. And by the way, 12 minutes in, we better mark this down. Dave Preston just said something about the NFL concern about profit. I hadn't. Boy, that's.
No, he also gives you the money tips too, man. Are you going to do money news for us on it?
There we go. There, you're exactly. I didn't realize coffee was the highest profit margin, which explains why I have no money. All right, let's get to the local teams and we'll go around. We'll get everybody's opinion on this. We'll start with the Washington football team and we'll begin with George. Before I go to you, George, because you were actually at FedEx Field, I had said on Friday that Ron Rivera was going to make a big difference. And I do think he did, because I think it was clear on Sunday that team was also playing for him. And you don't have a team come back, regardless of how bad the Eagles' offensive line was banged up, et cetera, unless you do have a group of players that's clearly buying in to a new coach. As Dave Preston and others mentioned, there was no crowd to rally this team. It had to come from within. And I think, as advertised, the defense we thought was going to be strong for the Washington football team, and it was on Sunday, and it led the way. And I think Ron Rivera's comment Monday that Dwayne Haskins was anxious at first, but once he got settled in, you could see why they've invested a future in Dwayne Haskins as the quarterback. George, you were there. What did you see?
No, I'm with you on that. And look, if you have a coach that's going in at halftime getting an IV, just so he can be able to coach the second half and be comfortable. How can you not stand up and continue to fight for 60 minutes? I mean, let's be honest. This team, that game 17-0 the past 10 years, that game's over, right? Ron said, Rivera said all offseason, or however long the offseason was, this team's not going to quit. He said there was a lot of unknown going into the game. And he mentioned, I thought it was funny when he mentioned he didn't know who was in Burgundy in that first quarter, but he liked the team that was second, third, and fourth. took a little bit to get going. And the lack of a crowd, I think, was even bigger testament to this team, because that pick right before the half and allowed Haskins to get that first touchdown drive. That's when he said he kind of felt comfortable. I was impressed the way they didn't quit. They're taking on their head. Look, that was, and I know the comparison's going to be made between Ron Rivera and Joe Gibbs. That was a Joe Gibbs type game, grind out game, didn't quit, come back from 17-0 down, take it like you're the attitude of your head coach. And I think that's what this team is going to be. As I said Friday too, this team is going to surprise some people. Not going to be that good, maybe not, but they're going to surprise some people. And Chase Young, by the way, guys, I mean, as Ryan Kerrigan said, as advertised, he was fun to watch Sunday.
He was fun to watch, and it's important not to get ahead of ourselves after one win, because the NFL is designed for every team to go 8-8, so it all evens out, and there's injuries. But Rob, you were just shaking your head, especially when he was talking about Chase Young. That was one of the more impressive rookie debuts that I can remember. That's not easy to step.
He's on pace to have 24 sacks this year, right? I mean, I always hate when people do that. But no, I mean, I think that's the most impressive thing. My big takeaway from this is that these are the kinds of games that Washington found a way to lose in the past. I mean, think about it. Over the course of the last 20 years, they've seen teams that, had a coach on the hot seat or on the way out, playing rookie quarterbacks, playing backup quarterbacks, playing teams. I mean, I'm pretty sure they've played a team where they had a bunch of offensive line injuries and still found a way to lose anyway, even though on paper they should have been the better team. This was the first time in a long time we've seen them get a clear matchup advantage and take advantage of it like all the way. 8 sacks is a lot in an NFL game. So I think that is a very promising omen for them if you're able to win the games that you're supposed to win. And then, just like George said, I mean, they're going to surprise some people. They're going to take some people by surprise, some good teams that maybe overlook them a little bit. Good coaching and guys who have bought into, maybe aren't as talented as some other teams, but who have bought into the system and are going to go out there and they're, as a team and as a unit, they are better than the sum of the individual parts. I think that's what we're seeing here. So again, are they a playoff team? TBD. But I mean, at a minimum, this is a competitive team that can give anybody a game on any given Sunday.
And they certainly show that. Presto, your thoughts? You had your arms folded there like a coach.
Well, no, does TBD mean totally, definitely? But of course, no. I think we've seen teams start 0-1. We've seen Washington teams start 1-0 before. We've seen Mike Shanahan's team start 3-1 before going 5-11. Jim Zorn's first team started 6-2 before fading. What I like about what I saw this past Sunday was that even if they had come up short, they looked like they were playing with a little bit more of a sense of urgency. That's something that we did not have during the Jay Gruden era in September. It seemed like the team was kind of still sleepwalking from a very soft August and a very light training camp. And especially against the Eagles, a couple of times they showed up on opening day, and it seemed like even though they were on par with Philly, the Eagles just seemed to be a little quicker to the punch. That was not the case this past Sunday. We saw pressure. We saw this new defense, and the people who have said that they should have been in the 4-3 the last decade, well, you know what? You're right. And especially with the personnel they have now, all those first-round picks on that front line, Chase Young really answering the bell on he had the debut that I think we would have hoped that a lot of first-round picks would have had over the last 20 years, but did not. I think that you look at Dwayne Haskins, he didn't lose the game. He definitely didn't necessarily win the game, but he did not lose the game. He had that fumble on the sack, but other than that, most of his decisions were smart. He had that run on third down, that the scramble that they were able to move the chains. So that's encouraging. And you just look at a team that is well away from finding itself. The team that we've seen on week 1 is definitely not going to be the team in week 14, week 15. But I like how this team is progressing. I like what they showed us this past Sunday. And they're the only 1-0 team in the NFC East. So they're playing better than everybody else in theory right now. It's only been 1 week, but it's very encouraging. So you've got that. But then again, you're only a bad week 2 loss in Arizona away from taking a look at yourself in the mirror, wondering what's going on.
By the way, if you're going to mention a 5-11 team again, please, only 5-11 team you have to mention is Steve Spurrier, okay? 5-11, not very good.
Very
Okay?
good.
Thank you. Okay.
And remember, Pepper Rogers, did he ever – well, anyway, that's a whole nother story. But you make a great point before we get to you, Chi, about Dwayne Haskins. And, I think about just what it seems like in the NFL, your best years at quarterback are when you finally hit 40 or whatever. It just but you do win with veterans in the NFL. And you make a great point about Dwayne Haskins wasn't spectacular, but with that defense for the Washington football team, didn't have to be. But he is working so hard to be a leader. He's working so hard to guide this team in so many ways, and I think he showed that on Sunday. And also what impressed me, and I said this before, I witnessed it firsthand in the NBA, the transition from the rookie year to the second year, it's so important to have that offseason. And in the NBA, I've been through lockout situations where, the offseason programs were shut down. There was no preseason. And those young players that were making John Wall is an example of that is it takes a long time to progress in the NBA. And so very proud of how Dwayne Haskins has continued to develop. Chi, Washington football team on Sunday.
Dwayne, to me, did something that Daniel Jones didn't do, and those two are compared so often, being that they're in the same draft class, and that Dwayne feels that the Giants should have selected Dwayne, and they let him fall all the way to Washington. Dwayne wasn't making crucial mistakes near the goal line. I mean, yes, he had the fumble in Washington's own, possession in their own side of the field, but Daniel Jones was throwing interceptions on the goal line. Those are killer moments for a team in a game. So honestly, I think
19-play drive.
19-play, 87-yard drive, and you cap it off with an interception. I mean, more from a morale standpoint, that kills an offense. So to me, Dwayne didn't do that. He was able to hang in there, take some big hits, and just let his defense, kind of win the game. That's this team's strength. That's what George said last week, that this pass rush has been hyped before, but with the addition of Chase Young, I think we've got something for real. Now, the worry that I have coming into next week is now you've got a quarterback in Kyler Murray who's about double the speed of Carson Wentz and can avoid the pass rush and step up. Is Washington's linebackers and secondary going to be able to help out their pass rush and 8 in the box? I'm not so sure yet.
And actually, to back up to Chris's point about Haskins, we saw with Alex Smith that this team can win if you have a quarterback who just protects the ball. You don't have to do anything exotic. You don't have to throw 4 touchdowns. You don't have to be Patrick Mahomes. Their defense should, in theory, be good enough. They should be able to run enough for them to be able to eke out wins, maybe, 21-17 or 17-10, what by any means necessary. Because, quiet as it's kept, Alex Smith was not that good in 2018, but they still went 6-3 with him starting games. And it was because he protected the ball. If Haskins can do that, learning on the fly, protecting the ball, keeping the offense on time, this team might be better than we think.
The Ravens, you keep an eye on Lamar Jackson. Everybody's going to keep their eyes on him as well. And just a tremendous debut. What did you see against the Browns on Sunday?
I saw the Ravens not try to get away from their true identity. Lamar is able to run the football better than any other quarterback in the NFL, and he's still keeping to that. And now he throws – it's always been there, but I think Lamar has just continuously improved. He's been in the league. He can throw the deep ball now. He hit downtown Hollywood Brown perfectly for a long completion early in the game, and he was 9 of 10 and long passes to start that game. So I just think he really is the complete package. He has the protection there as well, and I'm equally as surprised at how great the Ravens played as how badly the Browns looked. Just top to bottom, offense, defense. It looked like an uninspired football team, and I was such a Baker Mayfield defender for the beginning of his career, but I'm starting to wonder if it's a personality thing, an attitude thing, that the guys around him not play inspired around him in offense. So while Lamar was great and so were the Ravens, I think the Browns are they're a lost team at the moment.
I've never seen a team get so much love for just going 5-3 down the stretch of an already lost season. I mean, I can't remember, because, I mean, we think Baker Mayfield is great. Freddie Kitchens literally got a head coaching job out of it. And I mean, I don't see it. I don't see it.
Well, all right, let's talk about some other things in the NFL. And Rob, we'll just keep with this point. You made a point in your NFL preview. Tom Brady, and I think he still has a chance to turn things around there in Tampa Bay. But as pointed out in your NFL preview, it's not – you don't just put players on paper and win games. And the great example was the Washington football team that had, every Hall of Famer known to man, Bruce Smith, Deion Sanders, and didn't perform. So there's going to be a work in progress there.
And they're not the only example. You remember the 2011 Eagles, the dream team, as Vince Young called them. That team also went 8-8. There's a lot of examples of teams that assemble a lot of talent, but don't necessarily get it, gelled and on the field enough to the point where it actually translates into more wins. When it comes to the Buccaneers, there's a lot of questions. And, Gronkowski, I mean, he retired. So, do we put him on a pitch count? Is he maybe just a third down guy? Do you use him as a blocker, as a decoy? But I think the biggest question of all is Tom Brady, not because of what happened on Sunday. Everybody has a bad game every once in a while. The problem with Brady is he's 43 years old, and we've never seen anybody play this long and play well. And I always go to the example of Peyton Manning, because the year before they won the Super Bowl in 2015, Peyton Manning was prolific for 3/4 of the season. And then somewhere, it was like right after Thanksgiving, I think it was, he just hit a wall. And he's throwing interceptions, and he's throwing lame duck passes, and he's not throwing touchdowns anymore. If I recall correctly, I think he maybe went 3 out of 4 weeks without throwing a touchdown at all, which is not Peyton. So sometimes that wall, it's not just like, a linear thing that happens like one season you got it and the next season you don't. Sometimes it happens in the middle of a season. So we could see Tom Brady go for 400 yards this week and maybe throw for 300 this week, the following week. And then maybe it just ends and you have no idea when that's coming. So it just feels like the Buccaneers put a lot of eggs in that basket. And if Brady is not Brady anymore, then that's going to be a big problem for them. But I think they're a talented team. I still pick them to go to the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to win that division. I still think the Saints are the team to beat.
Yeah, the NFL's a cool game. It can all change on health if you're young or old, for that matter. All right, we got about 3 minutes remaining, so let's go around the horn, whatever else people thinking about as we get ready for week 2, week 1 now in a rearview mirror. We'll start with you, Dave Preston. What's on your radar right now, locally or around the whole NFL?
Thursday night football, Bengals Browns. Yeah, really. Thanks for coming back on that note.
It shouldn't even be nationally televised.
I know. That game should be the 9:30 game, not in London, just in somebody's basement.
You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Hey, 2 storylines to look for this year, redemption. Ben Roethlisberger is back after missing most of last season. He played well Monday night against the Giants, had 3 touchdown passes. Also, Cam Newton, who's the new starting quarterback in New England. They ran a lot. He ran the football a lot this past Sunday in a win. And even though the Patriots are not what they were even last year or 2 years ago, the AFC East has still been their playground for the last 20 years. So they're the champs until somebody knocks them off.
All right, Chi, we'll go to you. What else on your mind today?
Russell Wilson just continues to somehow get better and better in his career. I watched him this past Sunday, and I think between him and, honestly, Aaron Rodgers, 2 veterans absolutely throwing darts, accurate passes. I'm excited to see how the NFC, who will be the best quarterback in that. Will it be Breeze? Will it be Brady, Rodgers, Wilson? It's loaded. And I just think that, again, to reiterate, with the no crowds for these defenses, we're gonna see some offensive statistics put up, no doubt about it. And one last point, Rob, you mentioned where just kind of Peyton Manning fell off a cliff. The same thing happened to Brett Favre with the Jets. I remember they were rolling, And right around December, early December, it was like his arm fell off.
Mm-hmm.
So you're certainly right. And if we're seeing it early with Brady, I don't know. This Bucs team could kind of be middle of the road and be a big disappointment.
Yeah, I might not make it to this podcast. I'm kind of a aging veteran. All right, George, final minute. They're counting me down on this. You know how Zoom works. They're going to cut us off in a second here.
We're just going to disappear.
We're going to.
No, I'm anxious to see now how this defense responds in Arizona. I'm going to keep it local. I mean, Arizona looked good knocking off the Niners last week. So I'm just curious to see, as Ron Rivera said, you don't get a big head when you win. You don't get a big head when you lose. It's humbling to do both. See how this team responds to his message this week and see if they can build on what they accomplished in week one. Because, like, as you guys said, you're only as good as the last game. So we'll see what happens.
And to dovetail on that, what you said there with we think about guys when Ron Rivera was introduced, could never envision this year the way it's gone, and then for certain other reasons as well. And he has proven to be the right choice for the Washington football team in so many ways. And I think not only just the victory, but the fact that he is in D.C. should give Washington football fans encouragement. Rob Woodfork, Dave Preston, Chris Cichon. I see the countdown clock. George Wallace, thank you. And thank everyone for spending some time with us and watching.